there, and welcome to another episode of Nebraska Football Now. I'm your host, Andy Classen, joined by our Husker insider, Jake Bartecki. And I'm going to go out on a limb here, Jake. I'm guessing you're feeling pretty good following that performance.
Boy, oh boy, man, 68-0. I don't know if anybody could have predicted that. We both had some lofty predictions. I think you had 60-something to 3. I had 45 to 10. I tell you what, I figured Nebraska would be the dominant team. I did not see, A, a shutout, and B, almost 70 points. And 700 yards of offense, which I feel like is getting lost a little bit.
Yeah, over 700 yards of offensive output. Just stellar numbers, video game-like numbers. It's okay for us to be real happy. I was interested in your take on Coach Rhule. We got some audio here, a leaked video from halftime in the locker room. Let's take a listen.
I don't like them freaking moving the ball. They don't fear you. They don't respect you enough yet. And if that sounds like coach speak, then you have the wrong brain. They're dropping back against our starting defense. They're cutting our own line at the end of the half. All you young guys, just go back there and chill. I want my opportunity. Some of you guys will get an opportunity right now. I told you I don't care what the score is. I told you I care what the tape looks like. Did I trip when the ball was fumbled? No, I don't care what happens in the game. I want to see what the next play is. You have one half. Defense, you have one half. If they try to drop back and throw it, and that quarterback's not on the ground, I want new guys in there rushing. I want them hit. I want them never to say our name again.
Okay, Jake, I like that from my head coach, trying to keep people on task, accountable, and there is something to that. We can get lost in the moment and have fun. It was a party at Memorial Stadium for us. But for a head coach in that position, you got to keep them focused.
Yeah, and I think that's what Matt Rhule was trying to do, and I don't necessarily know if it was about the results of the game, because you can't be unhappy with a 33-0 lead at halftime. But I think it had a little bit more to do with the mentality and the mood of the team on the sidelines. Nebraska kind of took – it was the one time I think you saw them take their foot off the gas on either side of the ball was that final drive of the first half when Akron drove down, missed a field goal. I think it had more to do with that than it did with the results on the field, because Nebraska moved the ball well. Obviously, you had the goal line stuff, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and obviously the fumble by Emmett Johnson. You don't want either of those to happen, but otherwise Nebraska was flawless on both sides of the ball. But I think this is a year, and to me it reminded me a little bit of Nick Saban, right? That kind of gave me Nick Saban vibes in terms of how he always demanded the best and a good mentality out of every single player on that roster. Yeah. To me, this is a different year. This is a year where Matt Rhule feels like this team needs to have success. Not can have success, needs to. It is crucial for this team's athletic department. I think the financial model of the athletic department, a lot of it hinges on the success of the football program. That is not getting overlooked, and Nebraska is finally feeling like this is a year where they need to be successful in every way.
Well, one of the huge positives for me and even some players, I would have to say, old and young, was the number of bodies we saw out on the field. I think 115 players got into this game. What type of an impact does that have?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, not only because those guys work really hard in practice and they finally got to have their moment on the field at Memorial Stadium, but that is almost the equivalent, and it's not obviously totally comparable, but it's similar to getting a bowl game, right? And you have all those extra practices. Even if it's not the college football playoff, Matt Rhule talked about how valuable those extra practices before the Pinstripe Bowl last year were. Yeah. It's similar when these guys are able to get in the game. I think Archie Wilson was the only player that dressed that game that didn't play, and Matt Rhule said he got some angry emails that he didn't get out there at punt. But it's valuable because those guys are all going to be a part of the future of the program. It keeps them happy. It keeps them pleased. They're not sitting on the sidelines wishing they could get in. They got in, and it's huge for development.
That's my favorite issue to ever talk about, is the punters not getting enough work for the Huskers. Gunnar Gatula, starting left tackle, also had some words to say. Let's take a listen.
It's definitely great. I mean, those guys work their tails off just like everyone else. So we can go out and do our job like that and give them an opportunity to play. It's special. So
I absolutely love hearing that. He's talking about the grind and how he had to go through it and what it meant for him being a younger player, getting that shot, that opportunity. And it just echoes what you were saying.
Yeah, and he said it. Those guys worked their tails off, right? And he was one of those guys that worked really hard to get his moment, to see the field. 100 plus got out there
Yeah.
for Nebraska. And, I think the only thing you probably could have wished is you could have seen maybe Jalen Gramstad a little bit more. He got one last drive, former NAIA Player of the Year. So obviously News Channel Nebraska, we do some NAIA stuff. So it's good to see him out there as well.
Yes, it was. Talking about over 700 yards of total offense, is this the best offense we've seen over the last 4-5 seasons?
I think it's definitely the best one under Matt Rhule. When Adrian Martinez first got here under Scott Frost's first season, you had J.D. Spielman and guys like that who were, impactful. They were able to move the ball down the field, and they were capable of the explosive play. They were inconsistent. They turned the ball over a lot.
Yeah.
This is a Nebraska offense that has not turned the ball over a lot this season.
Right.
Obviously, had the one fumble against Akron. They are able to consistently put together 10 play, 80-yard drives. And Luke Lindenmeyer, congratulations on the engagement, was very much a safety net, I think, for Dylan Raiola against Cincinnati and then again against Akron as well, and finally found the end zone. I think it is the most consistent offense they have had, and I think it's, the best offense, at least under Matt Rhule.
It all starts with the quarterback, and of course, Nebraska is known for having dominant running backs over the past couple of seasons. What have been your early season impressions of Dylan Raiola and Emmett Johnson? Emmett Johnson averaged 10 yards per carry last week. Dylan had video game-like numbers last week, bettered them this week. He's in the top 5 in every national category that actually matters when it comes to quarterback play.
I don't feel like we heard enough about how well Emmett Johnson played against Akron. Obviously, he had the fumble, which I think is what more people are thinking of now because that's been a problem for Nebraska in the past. But the guy found the end zone 3 times. I mean, he caught one, and he ran 2 in, and he had another 100-yard game. I thought he was the best player on offense other than maybe Dylan Raiola, who, again, hadn't had that 300-yard game, hadn't had that 4-touchdown passing game, both career highs for him. I thought it was the most fluent he looked. And I get it was Akron, and Akron is probably going to be towards the bottom in a lot of categories for the FBS.
Right.
But I will say, just the way the ball came out of Dylan Raiola's hands, his vision, his understanding of when to throw the ball away, the few times that he's had to these first couple of weeks, it's markedly better than where it was last year. And I think you're going to start seeing higher and higher PFF grades for Dylan Raiola, and you're going to see him climbing the charts of quarterback rankings.
Yeah, he's definitely on a lot of national lists now after those 2 offensive output games. He's not the only quarterback that slung it around a little bit. Latif had over 120 yards passing in his limited time in the second half. What did you see of him?
It's Dylan Raiola's job, but that's probably the future. I know you've got Dayton Raiola coming in as well, but I tell you what, TJ Latif impressed the heck out of me. I thought he was comfortable in there. Dana Holgorsen said it this week. He didn't think the lights were too bright, which when you throw a freshman in there like that, that's your concern, if you have a big lead or not. Probably helped. Nebraska was up by, 7 scores probably at that point.
7 scores and 4.
Right, there you go. But look, he went out there and played really well. I thought he moved the ball well. I thought he's got legs too. I mean, that's the thing that Dylan Raiola doesn't have, is he's got the ability to run the ball. Now, going off of that, I think if there's one thing Nebraska's offense probably needs to figure out, it's that goal line situation, because you got stuffed, and TJ Latif and the Huskers were able to move the ball into the end zone from that point. But I think that's one thing they'll have to figure out, is what they want to do by the goal line. And I don't think it's part of Dylan Raiola's game necessarily, and that's okay, right? I mean, he doesn't have a body like Jalen Hurts where you can push your way in. Maybe that's Heinrich Harburg, but he's probably not comfortable doing that yet either. So that's one element we'll have to figure out.
Yeah, it was disappointing early in the game getting stuffed at the goal line there, but the Huskers responded in a pretty good way. Let's shift gears, get over on to the defensive side of the ball. We thought going in that we got a pretty experienced secondary. Now they're starting to pop up on national watch lists as well. How good is this secondary?
Good enough to be second in the FBS right now, just to Minnesota in terms of passing yards allowed. So, you talk about a pass defense that's been really dominant so far to start the season. And one of the guys that sticks out to me, and I think it's probably maybe the biggest positive from the defense, given where he was before, is Andrew Marshall. I mean, he doesn't have overwhelming size. He's opposite to Sierra Wright, who last year had a tremendous season in that second half. Came from Idaho, came from an FCS level, and the transition to the FBS has not been too much for Andrew Marshall. That's been very impressive to me. I also think what deserves a little bit of credit from that is the linebacking play. I mean, I think Deshaun McCullough has been everything that we would have hoped. That's putting a little more pressure on the quarterback, on the opposition. And I think a young defensive line has a little bit of a safety net with the linebackers behind them as well. So secondary's been awesome. We'll see what they're able to do against Houston Christian. Things are going to get tougher when you get to Big Ten play. I mean, you're going to play Michigan and a young freshman quarterback there that's got a lot of talent in Bryce Underwood. So we'll see, but so far so good. Very good.
Well, let's hear from the head man himself, Coach Butler, the defensive coordinator, and his thoughts over his defense past performance.
I think in the first 2 games, that group of players has played well together. You know, we've played some man, we've played some zone, we've played some match defense. We've blitzed a little bit. So I think that, against Cincinnati, I thought they played very well. I thought they played very well this past weekend. You know, you saw Cincinnati this past weekend. I don't know what they threw for 65 against us, and then he went out and threw for 350 last weekend against whoever they played. And so obviously I think that that's one of the strengths of our group. Individually, I think we've got players that can play man-to-man, and then we've got enough guys with multiple skill sets to play some of the other concepts we're playing. So far, so good.
Okay, I think we can all agree that the defensive line might need some help here, or there's some worries, some unknowns still out there. What do you take from Coach Butler's comments?
Well, I think he's being realistic. I mean, obviously he talked about the secondary there, and he thought they were they stuck to their assignments to a degree against Cincinnati, but at the same time, they also gave up some plays, right? Especially on that last drive. And then, of course, Malcolm Hartzog made up for it. So I think when you look at the secondary and the defense as a whole, you still recognize one thing. There is a mix of young talent and there's a mix of newcomers with veteran experience. I mean, you've got kind of a melting pot in there this season.
Okay, we talked offense, we talked defense, we got to talk special teams, the other third of the game, and what a turnaround thus far from last year to this year. What do you attribute that growth to? Is it just getting Coach Eckler back, infusing some energy, getting better players, or is it a mix of everything?
Well, Ja'Cory Barney has been massive on punt returns. Last season, Nebraska had 75 punt return yards for the entire year. Against Akron, Ja'Cory Barney had 87.
And Husker fans wanted more.
Exactly. It took them, I guess 2 games, right? But in 1 game, Nebraska was able to surpass last year's total in punt return yards. The difference is insane to me. And again, we got to see what they do in Big Ten play. But I think there's a bit of a difference between Ja'Cory Barney returning punts and Isaiah Garcia Castaneda. The blocking has been much better. And I think there's been videos of Mike Eckler surfacing pregame to Cincinnati, hyping that group up. Those guys are bought in. They want to play well for that guy. I think he's a huge part of it. I think there's a want to from the special team, that wasn't there before. We didn't see Archie Wilson punt, but when he did against Cincinnati, 2 inside the 10, and Kyle Kananen's been nails.
Yeah, he has. Well, let's hear from head coach Matt Rhule on his thoughts over Houston Christian. He doesn't want to look over any opponent. Let's hear from him.
So, turn our attention now to Houston Christian. 1-1, excellent defense. Ranked in, they've only allowed 1 third down conversion the entire year. Ranked in the top 5 in several defensive categories, and obviously be a real challenge for us. They ran for 400 some yards the first game, and they just fumbled, had a couple of key fumbles last week. I think they had lost 4. Otherwise, they might have come out on top against Eastern Kentucky, which is a perennial FCS power. So.
Well, I feel like that's more coach speak. He's the ultimate, he wants to respect all opponents. Then you saw the leaked video, though, where he was kind of letting it loose a little bit there. But I like that mindset. You want to use yourself as the bar, the standard, but you can't overlook opponents, and Nebraska is in no way, shape, or form even close to being able to do that. So even though this is a team, FCS team, that you feel you should have a good chance against, you can't look ahead to the Michigan game.
Right, and that's, you kind of said exactly what I was going to say there. I don't think Nebraska's to that point yet where they are able to look past an opponent. And look past the opponent, I think, is it's a wide definition, right? Looking past the opponent could be playing a close game with an FCS school, which, mind you, last week Georgia only beat Austin Peay by 2 or 3 scores.
There you go.
Obviously, Louisiana Tech's not an FCS school, but hung around, lost by 2 scores to LSU. But I don't think Nebraska's in a position yet to be able to look past teams like Houston Christian. I think there's still things they want to work out, get better, detail before Michigan and Michigan State right after.
Exactly.
So I think this is a game where they'll come out bought in. I think the fans, even though it's an 11 a.m. game, we've had nothing but night games, will be there and show up and be loud because I think there's a lot of excitement for where this team's at right now.
A lot of detractors will say, well, Nebraska beat up on Akron. That's how they were able to score 68 points and pitch a shutout. Well, the same could be said for Houston Christian. They put up 69 points and pitched a shutout in week 1. So there's some offensive firepower there, albeit against maybe a different level of competition.
Yeah.
What are the keys to this week's game?
Well, I think the number one thing for me is I want to see Nebraska establish an offensive flow. They did that against Akron, and it paid off. That first drive moved down the field really quickly. Luke Lindenmeyer on a vertical route on, I believe it was 2nd and long, got Nebraska down into Akron territory, and Emmett Johnson a few plays later with a long touchdown run. Yeah. Number 2 for me is get after the quarterback. I want to see Nebraska blitz a little bit more. This is an opportunity to test out what you have in terms of rushing those linebackers at the quarterback before Big Ten play. Last non-conference game of the season, so let's test a few things out. And number 3, this to me is the most important. Everybody stay healthy. No injuries. Let's have a nice, clean game. We've done a nice job with that so far this season, with the exception of, unfortunately, Janiron Bonner. But let's not have anybody that's going to be crucial for the Michigan game get hurt.
Love that you bring up Lindenmeyer there. Just love seeing our quarterback rip the seam, getting the tight end involved early. Okay, you heard the 3 keys to victory. Let's get a prediction here.
I'm going to go 56-7 Nebraska. I think this is one where they will control the game. I see it similar playing out to the Akron game. I don't think you necessarily are going to see a 68-0 blowout every single week.
Right.
So a little less in that degree, but Nebraska by multiple scores.
Well, I went a little bit bigger and bolder than you last week, and it worked out. So I'm going to stay on that hype train. I'm going to go 63-0. The defense tasted that success, loved that shutout. Coaches are going to stay hot on their tail, just like you saw during that halftime outburst from Coach Rhule. And it feels pretty good, right, to win in that type of fashion, knowing that you got a really tough slate of Big Ten opponents, after that. So enjoy this first third of the schedule, but take care of business on the field.
Yeah, I can already see myself looking up when the last time Nebraska had 2 straight shutouts is right after the show's done.
It's on the table.
It's on the table in a big way.
Jake, thank you for stopping by and sharing all that wonderful information with us. And thank you for enjoying another episode of Nebraska Football Now.